welcome back to my channel. On this episode of Deep Dive the Right Wing Grift, we are going to be talking about the news media on the right. Some of the things that they've done, how they've traditionally just lost their freaking minds, and how they're making money off of it, and how they manipulate you. So, before we get started, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like my content, and if you don't like my content, well, you're free to leave, I guess. I don't know why you're here. A lot of you like to hang out, and some of you are doing real fan material here, because there's someone that the second I get a video posted, you hit the dislike button, and I gotta give you credit. That's some dedication, so thanks for the interaction. It's good for my channel. So, yeah. Okay, so we have to talk about right-wing media, and we're specifically going to start with literally the biggest offender, Fox News. Fox News got started because Nixon wanted a right-wing propaganda because he didn't like the way he was being covered in the media, and he wanted a way to pop out his own propaganda. And he tried to do a state-run media, but it never came to fruition. But it gave Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch, and Rupert Murdoch owns Fox, the idea. And don't get me started on Roger Ailes. I could do a whole deep dive series into how gross Roger Ailes was and all the allegations that went with him and how people covered it up for years for no reason other than misogyny. But alas, I don't have time for that right now. So, Fox News has had a long history of being very, very specific in how they like to play their audience. They like to play identity politics. They like to play on emotion. They like to lie. They will flat out lie to you, and then when they get sued, they won't call themselves a news channel. They will call themselves a commentary entertainment section, especially the night hosts. Like, they're known for that, and we'll talk about the two biggest offenders today in just a minute. But that is what they do, and I mean, they have directly lied to their audience and played on their audience's emotions for years. And because for the longest time they were the only cable network of right-wing TV, they had the highest ratings because they had every Republican that's crazy enough to get their news from them watching them on a nightly basis, and their ratings were crazy high. Well, you have to divide the rest of us between MSNBC and CNN. But yeah, I am just going to cover a few things before recently, and then we're going to go into this long list of things that have already been proven and how they grifted you through the coronavirus and the election. But I want to cover some longer grifts that they had. When President Barack Obama became president, Roger Ailes wanted to make sure when he was playing off of politics and fear, he wanted to play off the fact that Obama was Barack Hussein Obama. You didn't just call him Barack, you didn't just call him Obama. They were very specific to call him that because it was a way to resonate in their audiences and their base audience's brain that he's Muslim bad, president bad, everything he does is bad. And then they used that, and when he didn't have a lot of scandals, they just went after the weirdest things for him. Like, I kid you not, the type of mustard he used on a hot dog was like major news. The fact his wife wore an expensive dress was major news for the longest time. His tan suit was major news. Like, and it was playing off of your emotion. They did everything they could to play off your emotion. And Muslim, bad. Barack Hussein Obama, Muslim equals bad. That's literally how they, played that. And there was a whole freaking 8 years of that, and it drove me crazy because my family watches it, and I had to watch them spew that crap. And they never really said anything. They just went off of, these weird little nitpicks because he didn't have a lot of scandals. Barack Obama was pretty scandal-free and was he's still a war criminal. But when it comes to when you compare the two, yeah. So then we move on to the Trump years, where Trump can do no wrong. At first, do not get me wrong, when they thought he couldn't win, they were calling him out. They were saying all the things that were bad about him. But the second they realized he was going to win that nomination, they flipped to the 1-800 Trump is the king, God, Messiah of all things that is going to save us. And the way they covered him was nauseatingly, disgustingly fabricated. He would get caught in a scandal, and they would make excuses for it, or they would just flat out ignore it. there were times when there were huge pieces of news breaking on what he was doing, and they would cover some sort of identity politic like cancel culture or the Great Replacement Theory. I hate that Fox News plays that immigrants are dirty and bad and Great Replacement Theory thing, which we'll get into with Tucker Carlson in a minute. But I absolutely hate it. They would use that. They would use identity politics to cover up the news. So if you only watch Fox News, you wouldn't know half of the stuff that Trump was up to because they played identity politics. They played like this shell game. Look over here while I'm hiding what Trump is doing here. And then I would have to explain to people what Trump was actually doing, and they're like, "Why didn't see it on Fox News?" Because Fox News isn't going to cover it because of the 1-800-KISS-TRUMP's butt category. Then the coronavirus came around and they lied to you. There are internal memos of them at the beginning of the coronavirus last year where they were saying, don't meet in person, wear masks, do things like this, hand wash, because it's dangerous and we don't want to get our talent sick, we don't want to get our staff sick. And they're literally internal memos talking about this while they themselves are on the nightly news. They knew that it was dangerous, and while they were doing it, they were pointing it out on their shows. They were saying things like, it's the next Democratic hoax, it's no worse than the flu. They were propping up hydrochloroquine. They were bringing on fake doctors like Dr. Oz, who is known for touting fake stuff, and they were touting that the coronavirus isn't what it is while it was killing people. And they were telling people to go out and live their lives while they themselves, the news hosts on Fox News, were literally protecting themselves against the virus. That is disgusting. That is absolutely unforgivably disgusting. And they played into their base, and they make so much money, not from their ad revenue, but from their cable subscriptions. So if you want to get rid of Fox News, tell your cable provider you don't want it anymore. You don't want it on your thing. That would be the best way to rid ourselves of Fox News. But then we got into the election, and it got so much worse. They helped propagate the big lie, knowing that they were lying. And how do we know that they were lying? They would prop up Sidney Powell. They would have Sidney Powell on, who is and then the MyPillow guy and all sorts of other people to say that the Dominion voting machines were rigged, and there were these ballots that were brought in and all these other things. And they propagated this lie so much that to keep from getting sued for defamation, they had to go through and fire Lou Dobbs, not complaining about that, consider that a win, to actually issuing this like systematic retraction of everything that they said that was a lie. They went through their shows and they played the same systematic questions, the same systematic retraction, because they always knew that they were lying. And when they got sued, they knew if it went to court, they would lose. And I'm really hoping that Dominion and other things still continue to sue them, because if they sue them, they can bankrupt them. The next big offenders are OAN, who are way, way worse at propagating the big lie and the coronavirus stuff. They knew behind the scenes too, as well, that the coronavirus is making people sick, that you needed to social distance, you needed to wear a mask, but they turned it into a political fight. Wearing a mask became strictly about whether you were for Donald Trump or not for Donald Trump. We had a freaking pandemic and people weren't wearing a mask. The nurses who knew weren't wearing a mask because they supported Donald Trump and they wanted freedom. And that is what they encouraged. OAN fairly regularly encouraged not wearing a mask as a sign of politicalness. They politicized and played identity politics with masks. Same thing with Newsmax. Newsmax lied about the Dominion servers, is getting sued, had to issue the retractions, but I believe it was it OAN or Newsmax that played Mike Lindell's thing, because they still know that their base digs into that stuff, and they created a long, this views and opinions are blah, 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 but they know that their base isn't going to look at that. They know that their base isn't going to look at that. They're just going to pay attention to the Mike Lindell thing, and it will not keep them from being sued. Just because you said that is not going to keep you from being sued, I promise. Freaking promise, and I genuinely hope that they bankrupt them. But that is what they do. They politicize things like masks. Tucker Carlson is infamous, back to Fox News, for politicizing the Great Replacement Theory. For those of you who don't know what the Great Replacement Theory is, it is a way to scare elderly white people into thinking that America is imploding with immigrants, and that it's, I'm going to quote Tucker Carlson or paraphrase him, They're bringing in dirty people, crime, and they're living on the streets causing homelessness. That's not what's happening. But that's what he propagates on his show on a regular basis. Because without identity politics, they got nothing to go on because they have no policies. I don't think in the entire my family's been watching Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson for years, and I don't think I have once ever seen them actually talk about a real policy, unless it's tax cuts for the wealthy. I genuinely can't remember them talking about an actual policy, just politicizing mass and lying to people. And that is what they do. They play identity politics, they politicize things that don't need politicizing, they politicize policies, and they play on racism and the fear of old white people. And that is how OAN, Fox News, and the right are the great grift. Alright guys, I will see you later.